welcome to my top 20 films of 2020 video. I think it's been about 4 years since I've done one of those, and I always do a top 20. I don't normally do a top 10. I like to just allow for those ones that escape the top 10 when I talk about my favorite films of the year. But I think the last time I did one of these, which is actually taking place at the end of the year, was in 2016. And what I did then was I called it the rough cut. And then I think later on in 2017, I did a big video called The List. And in that video, I just kind of revised things and caught up with movies I hadn't seen. That's usually what I do. At the end of the year, I kind of don't do my list because I haven't seen anywhere near as many films as I wanted to, and it's award season, and everything that's really good gets held off till the end of the year and doesn't get a release in the UK until February or January or even March. So I usually wait until like the Oscar season to do my proper legit top 20 films of the year video. I'll still probably do that. Last year I did my RazorwireReviews film awards, which I really loved doing, but it was so much work, I probably won't do that this year. And of course, this year has been a different year, 2020. It hasn't been a traditional year for films, and so I haven't seen hardly anywhere near as many as I usually do because I go to the cinema all the time, or I used to. So that got wiped clean from March, and so there's been 9 months of not going to the cinema. I didn't even go when they reopened in, I think, June or July, so I've literally seen very little. In fact, my list of overall films I've seen in 2020 is at 24. Yeah. So this almost feels redundant, but I want to kind of do this video and mention these films because I am sure when I do my revised list, probably in March, maybe February, because there's a lot of films I want to get to. I've got loads downloaded on my Sky Cinema box. I've got loads, ready to watch in different streaming services and Netflix, Amazon Prime. There's loads of things I want to get to and watch. Many that I think I will really, really enjoy. There's films like Wolfwalkers, Eternal Beauty. And they just keep coming up and people mentioning them in their own top 10 lists, which is why I love top 10 lists, because then I get ideas of, oh, I never even heard of that one. And if my friend really likes it, I should probably give it a shot. And that's usually where those really interesting films come from. So there's many, many more for me to see, and a big list that I'm adding to constantly. And so I'll do that over the next few months. It's always been my tradition, really. I kind of like doing it, playing catch up over January, February, and March, just powering through all those ones I didn't get to. But with this year, obviously, it was a bit tricky because I was home for 3 months in isolation, and so you would have thought I would have really taken advantage of that and watched so many films. And I just didn't. I had no motivation to watch a lot of films, and that's a whole other story. Let's get into this. And I will say, I would say broadening my horizons. Others would disagree with that even as a term relating to what I'm about to talk about. But over the past few years, I've really become less and less interested in labels, really, when it comes to filmmaking and cinema and movies and TV shows and video games. And so with this year, 2020, the lines are being blurred even more. I remember a couple of years ago, someone was saying to me that, movies that are released on Netflix are not real films. They're made for TV movies. They're not real films. And I thought, oh, okay, so when The Irishman comes out on Netflix, is that not a film then? And they were like, well, no, it's Martin Scorsese. And I'm like, got ya, okay. And it's just, again, the lines are being blurred because now things are going straight to streaming. We had Wonder Woman 1984 and Soul coming out on Christmas Day. That was a big day, I think, in terms of the whole shift, the huge paradigm shift in how we receive films. I remember a couple of years ago they were talking about, some big filmmakers were talking about releasing films straight to people's homes on the day they come out in the cinema and being charged a certain fee, and people thought they were nuts. And now it's happening. So it's intriguing, but I will say this list does not include 20 movies. For me it does, because I view anything that is a visual, storytelling piece as a film in a way. But that's a whole other video. I could talk a lot about that, and if you're going to get offended by it, you're just going to get offended by it, and that's all there really is to it. I can go into my reasons. I could probably do that in a separate video. But for me, it's nice to feel looser with it and think, no, that is a film. That's something someone has worked on. It is a visual story. And for me, that's a single piece that has been memorable in 2020. So let's get right to the list and get cracking. I feel like I want to do it quickly so that I can do the really in-depth one later on. But knowing me, this will probably be another long one as well. But let's get right into it with number 20. Underwater. So this film stars Kristen Stewart, and we had a terrible cinema experience. This is one of the few films I actually saw in the cinema this year. And that's a whole other story, but we went in and the sound wasn't working throughout the trailers and the adverts. We had this dumb as shit guy who worked at Cineworld come in and look at the screen and be like, it seems okay. And by the time the film started, there was only sound effects and muffled dialogue. So the guy just said, well, you can just keep watching it if you want. There was like nothing offered. They didn't offer to restart the film and fix the sound, and that was just terrible. So we went to go see it a second time, and I got caught in traffic on the bus. It was a nightmare, but the film was really enjoyable. Don't have too much to say about it because, again, if I saw 24 films, or in what you would call it, probably a little bit less than that, it's not like this was one of the, because I enjoyed most films I saw this year. This was pretty good. I know a lot of people really loved this one. I enjoyed it. I really like Kristen Stewart, and she appears in another film in this list. But yeah, it was towards the end. It got a little bit, a bit too. I don't know. It didn't quite stick the landing for me. But there were some really impressive, like, wow moments, and I really loved the claustrophobia. And it very much is just Alien on an underwater mining station. So I felt that, but it was cool. It was a nice. Why not do that? Why not do Alien under the ocean? So, but it went a bit differently than Alien. Don't get me wrong; it's not a complete carbon copy, and I liked how they used certain things with the creature. Very, very cool. So I enjoyed this one quite a bit. Number 19, the first of probably many Netflix films all together now. Yeah, this is not a good film. This is and I hate to say that, but it's a fairly standard rote teen melodrama about this young girl played by Auli Cravalho. I don't know how you pronounce that name. She's the actress who plays Moana in the film Moana. And she's this young girl who's like super positive, like such a nice, young girl. And she's got like real aspirations of being a singer. And life is just kicking her ass. But she still maintains such a sunny disposition until life continues to kick her ass. And there is nothing she can do but let it beat her. And so it's about her trying to kind of claw her way back to, normality. And it tugs at the heartstrings. The woman who plays her mother gave a fucking blistering performance, in my opinion. She was so great. I really enjoyed it, and it was very sickly sweet and sappy, but I kind of like that. That's just is one of my sensibilities. I really do enjoy films like this. It's not a great film, but I really liked it. Number 18, we have another Netflix film, Lost Girls. So this, I think it's called Lost Girls. Let me check on my letterbox, which is how I'm doing this. Yes, just Lost Girls. This is a really good film, actually, and it's about a true story. It's a true crime movie, and it's about this woman whose daughter goes missing. And there's a lot of evidence that suggests that something really bad happened. And so she goes to, the area in which her daughter went missing with her other two daughters who's still with her, and they do some digging, and there was no pun intended with that, but a body is literally found in this area by the beach. And it's not her daughter, but then a chain starts to emerge, basically, and that there are things that are more connected than perhaps the police had realized. And so it's about this one woman kind of mission, and she eventually kind of groups together the other mothers of the other bodies of the girls who have been found in this area. And this is a true story, which made it a lot more impactful for me. And it's about them basically just pushing the system where the police are just not interested enough to say that there's a connection here, there's a pattern here, we should look into this. And it really takes them a long time to really make any kind of movement to look into it. And it's a very good cast, and in particular I watched this because Thomasin McKenzie is in it, and she's one of my favorite actors working right now. She's just been very memorable in everything I've seen her in, and in this one she's more of a side role. She plays one of the younger sisters, but she's still, there's just something about her performances that really captivate me. And I actually heard, I forget who the guy is, but I heard a guy on a podcast, a film-related podcast, and he had worked on Edgar Wright's new film, which is now coming out next year, 2021, and she's in that. And he said that when he was in a room with her acting, he was blown away by how good she was. And that doesn't surprise me because she's just, she's a special talent, I think. Leave No Trace is a big one of my favorite films of 2018, and Jojo Rabbit, one of my favorite films of 2019, and she's great in both of them in very different ways. In this film, there's not much for her to do, but she does very well with the few moments that she has, and is really good. But the rest of the cast is great as well. There is a scene, a moment, and a visual in this film that will never leave me. And I don't want to say that's a good thing, quote unquote, because it's a horrifying image. But it's like I don't want to say it's a necessary one, but it really, yeah, the film stays with you. It's a very good film, not fantastic, but one that I really got a lot out of, and one that was kind of, stuck in my mind for quite a while afterwards. Number 17, we go from, horrible kind of, true story, crime movie, really serious subject matter, should be treated delicately and, covered, and it's a story that should be told. And we move from that straight to Sonic the Hedgehog. So I am blown away that this is anywhere near a favorite list for me. I've now seen the film twice, and I love it. Who would have thought? People talk about the video game movie adaptation curse, and certainly there haven't been many good ones. I still maintain Tomb Raider from 2018 is the best video game adaptation. That's almost pretty much as good. Well, maybe not pretty much as good, but it's close enough to like an Indiana Jones movie. It's a great adventure film, but these adaptations, some of them are kind of enjoyable. The Resident Evil movies are fun, kind of trashy action movies. But this Sonic the Hedgehog, I saw the trailer, I thought it's not, no. Where are they going with this, And it's actually a really fun time. It's a kid's movie. I definitely tapped into that part of my brain that was a huge Sonic the Hedgehog fan as a kid, from the games to the animated TV show and even the comic books that I grew up reading. And I think I would have been in love with this film as a kid. I really would have. And it's funny now, actually, my cousin, her son, I think he's about 5 or 6. He's a huge Sonic fan right now. And I was like, wow, is that still a thing for kids? Maybe the movie's a big part of that. And obviously they're still making games. So that was a really heartwarming thing to see that he become a huge Sonic fan. But the movie, I really enjoyed. Jim Carrey is chewing up the scenery in a really fun and enjoyable way. And I actually really liked Sonic and what they did with him. And I'm actually really looking forward to the sequel. Sue me. Number 16, we have Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, I think is the full title of this film. We have Margot Robbie returning to the role of Harley Quinn that she first stepped into in 2016 with Suicide Squad. Is that it? Is that the only film that she's played her in, I guess? Was it 2017, Suicide Squad? I can't remember. I feel like she's played her in more than one, besides this one. I can't... What was there? Suicide Squad? She wasn't in Justice League? I don't know. Anyway, so she comes back to the role, which was expected, and she'll be playing her again in The Suicide Squad next year. I really liked this. It was a lot of fun, very cartoony, very violent, didn't take itself too seriously. In fact, took itself very unseriously, and it was just a really fun, weird movie. I just liked how quirky it was. Ewan McGregor's really strange in the film. There's some really dark moments, some really funny moments. The final kill of the movie, I was in the cinema and I just burst out loud. It was so funny. It was just such a shocking kind of I don't know, it's just a good time. There's nothing more to say about it. It's a good time. Number 15, On the Rocks. This is the newest film from Sofia Coppola, who I feel like I'm a fan of her, even though I've probably only seen 2 of her films before this, which would be Lost in Translation, obviously, which is the big one, probably her most famous film, and I think The Bling Ring, which was, was okay, I guess. I don't really have too many strong feelings on that film. I think that's it. I really don't think I've kept up with her, her films, unfortunately, even though I really love, in fact, Lost in Translation. But, Bill Murray's back in a Sofia Coppola film. Rashida Jones, I really like, together in this movie. It's about this woman who suspects that her husband is cheating on her, and her dad, played by Bill Murray, gets involved in kind of tracking him. And it's a really fun film. I love how it ultimately becomes about something completely different by the end of the film, and you realize that it's a much different story than it's selling you, even throughout the entire film, which is really smart. I look forward to revisiting it and watching it from that different lens. And it plays fairly fair with how it kind of switches itself towards... There's no twist at the end, but the way the film ends, it kind of makes you reconfigure everything in your head. Oh, it was actually about this thing all along. And that makes a lot more sense. Not even a lot more sense, but that's a more interesting way to look at the film. And it was a cool relationship between the two. Bill Murray's great in the film. Didn't quite have that extra kick that maybe I was expecting or wanting, considering the Sofia Coppola Lost in Translation connection, but it was still a very good film. Number 14, we have Christopher Nolan's Tenet, the film that saved cinema in 2020. Yeah, that was a weird one, wasn't it? Where Nolan was just adamant on that film coming out in the cinema, and you can kind of see why, but Nolan or not, I'm not rushing back to the cinema when I could see very clearly when I went back to the city for the first time since the pandemic started that no one was really taking it seriously. And so I thought, fuck, I'm not sitting in a room with these people. So I didn't get to see it until a few weeks ago. I bought it on Blu-ray, got the 4K disc right here, and it was pretty damn good. I was completely lost. Not halfway through the film, half an hour into the film, me and Connie paused Tenet, went to Wikipedia, and read through the plot. Because we had no fucking clue what was going on. Yeah, there was like scenes going on. They go into this building. They want to speak to this person. They go to another country. They want to get to this place and get to this thing and go to this gallery. And we're like, what are they even doing here? What are they looking for? So this is the thing. It wasn't about the whole time inversion thing that we found confusing. It was just the basic plotting where, you know, he's meeting with this woman and it's like, no, there's this thing, and there's that. And it was just going so quickly. It was like, okay, so there's, what was his name again? That guy, the Russian ugly guy? Okay, so there's a painting. Is it a real painting? I'm not quite clear if that was who faked the painting? Is he going for the painting? Is the painting the thing? What is the painting for? Who's that guy? Like, it was just completely lost. So Wikipedia, like, okay, connect the dots a bit. Okay, let's carry on. After that, it was fine. It really was fine. And there are confusing elements in terms of the time inversion, but not too much that it actually confused me. It was just that first 30 minutes was rocky. It was really rough to get into. Like, I was enjoying the visuals and the technical merits and the action of the film, but I just was completely like, huh? Okay, you know. But then once I got past that hurdle, you know, we finished the film, and it was really good. I really liked it. I loved the ending. I thought that was really cool. Like, just the personal note between Robert Pattinson and is it John David Washington's character at the end. Yeah, I think maybe it feels a bit too clever for its own good. I won't call it pretentious. But I really can't argue with a film that crashes as a 747 plane through a fucking building and does it for real. There's a documentary on the Blu-ray that shows you just like the raw footage of the plane going into the airport building, and it's just like staggering. So from a spectacle standpoint, this delivers incredibly. Even just the gorgeous locations they went across, and you know, those IMAX shots just look incredible on, you know, on the big screen, on the big TV screen, I should say, and you know, in 4K Blu-ray. But yeah, I want to see it again. After watching the making of, I really want to watch it again. I think I'll enjoy it much more, especially now that I know what the plot is in that first half an hour. And it just, there's just a stumbling block there. I don't know if it was just me, but it was the same with Connie. She was confused as well. I don't know. I just don't think it was as neatly set up in the beginning as it could have been. But otherwise, I really liked it. Number 13, this is another Netflix film, a documentary entitled David Attenborough, A Life on Our Planet. I'm refilming this section because I got into this long spiel that no one needs to hear, and I was kind of confusing myself. But this is a really, really good film, a really impactful film. I love the way that David Attenborough kind of presents this as a mission statement, as a kind of wake-up call to, come on guys, again, wake the fuck up. You know, if we don't do this by a certain time, this is what will happen. And it also reflects on his career and his life, and what an incredible career and life it's been, you know, dedicating himself to decades and decades worth of research and presentation of all this scientific wonder of nature and the world we live in. And I love David Attenborough, and it's a really good film. The way he opens it, the way he closes it, which is the spiel I went on, I'm going to cut out of the video. Really interesting. I'll just leave it for you to what. You should watch this film. It's not very long. But the way it begins and the way it ends in the same place that he films in, and then he kind of reframes the sentiment and the meaning of him being in that place to present this film. Really, really great. And there's a particular sequence in the middle where he's like, okay, so this is what's going to happen by 2050. This is what's going to happen by, you know, 2100. And it's just like, fuck, you know. And I think there's a moment where he says something to the effect of, you know, they talk about climate change and how, you know, we're destroying the planet, and it's not true. We're not going to destroy the planet, but we are going to destroy humanity. The planet will live far beyond us. The planet can keep on spinning without us on it. You know, it will rebuild itself. But us as a civilization, as a species, yeah, we're pretty much in trouble, you know. And I just thought it was a really good, you know, nice condensed, like I think it's like 90 minutes, 80 minutes. And for a guy who is, you know, reaching, you know, the latter stages of his life and at the end of such a great career, to make a film like this, I think is a really great kind of, again, mission statement. And I thought that it was really quite incredible. Number 12, we have Wonder Woman 1984. This film has been getting a lot of shit. And I think I understand why. I was watching it and going, yeah, this is too long. Yeah, there's not really a lot of action in this. Boy, that's questionable, you know. And yeah, this is pretty cheesy, you know. Oh, which is like very cheesy. And by the end, it's like, wow, it's almost like a Hallmark movie in the final scene of the movie. But I really liked it. I thought it was great fun. A really good kind of comic booky story, and that's kind of the danger if you lean too much into that. It's you're making a real comic book movie when, spoilers if you haven't seen it, not much of a spoiler, but the whole plot revolves around a stone that you can wish things from. It's literally just the monkey's paw story, you know, where magical wishes can happen, and it's like, you know, you look at, well, I don't know. I mean, with the Zack Snyder movies and when that kind of canon started in 2013, it was trying to be like a raw, gritty, kind of Nolan-y kind of, you know, grounded take on Superman. But at the end of the day, it's fucking Superman. It's high fantasy, you know. So they can't quite escape that. And I think Wonder Woman and the Gal Gadot portrayal is still kind of has one foot in that kind of Zack Snyder gritty world, but it isn't really that gritty because, you know, you can be dark and kind of atmospheric, but ultimately these are characters who are kind of gods, you know. So I think that it's nice to just lean into it, and Patty Jenkins leaned into it with this film, and I really liked it. There's a great central message to it. It's a little bit on the nose at times. Again, there's some questionable stuff in terms of what they did with Steve Trevor, but the emotions really resonated with me, and I thought Pedro Pascal in particular was incredible. And, you know, Kristen Wiig is kind of built up to be the cheetah and like the villain of the movie. And she did really good. She surprised me, actually. I really liked where her character went. There wasn't enough of her, I don't think. But Pedro Pascal, like, what an insane performance. Like, he's just so fun and kind of grimy, but there's humanity to him. And you can see how he's falling down this path. And he is just he, again, talk about leaning into it. Like, he fully commits to this role, which is very wacky at times, but it still feels real enough. And there is this sense of a man who wants to be a good father, and he wants to be successful. And it's a very loaded character. I think it's a really, really, I think the character is going to be underrated. I think he's a great, I wouldn't even call him a villain. I just think he's a great character in a comic book movie. Like, I think that's what will keep me coming back to this film. You know, not that I'll watch it again and again. It's not that kind of film for me. But, you know, he was so memorable. Like, one of my favorite performances of the year, I think. And just to go from how great he was in The Mandalorian and then this, like, December 2020, Pedro Pascal has just owned it. Like, he's great. And I thought that he kind of made the movie for me. And Gal Gadot, you know, she just has that kind of, that weird charisma. I don't know if that might sound almost insulting, but there's just something very unique about her, and she fits into that role perfectly. This wasn't a great film, but I really liked it. Number 11, I really wanted this to be in my top 10 because I thought it would just be funny, but it didn't quite make the cut. Eurovision. I'm going to have to check my letterboxd again. Eurovision. You've seen the poster, you know what I'm talking about. Eurovision, is it a song of... No, the Story of Fire Saga. Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. I love Rachel McAdams. The past few years, I've been like, oh... Like, I've seen her in films, never really, you know, been too kind of wowed by her or anything. And I think it was Game Night where I was like, fuck, she's really funny. And then I just saw her in Disobedience. I thought, fuck, she's really great at dramatic acting. And now I just kind of, you know, I saw Mean Girls for the first time this year, and it's like, man, okay, I need to open my eyes a bit to Rachel McAdams, and I watched this for her pretty much. And Will Ferrell, he's very hit and miss for me. His humor, you know, it is what it is. But I love that this was kind of a personal film for him. Like, he loves the Eurovision Song Contest. His wife is Swedish, I think, and him and Rachel McAdams play this Icelandic couple. They're not a couple, but they're you know, they've grown up as kids, and they've wanted to be in the Eurovision Song Contest. They get a chance to do it, of course, and it's a crazy comedy, and I just loved it. It's so ridiculous, and yet at the end when she sings the song, it's like really powerful, and like the song's great, and it's just like, why am I getting moved by this stupid film? And you got to give it credit for that. It was just really enjoyable. Her comedic timing is great. He's pretty damn good. Dan Stevens, like, just knows what kind of movie he's in and plays into that entirely. It's just a really fun film. I really liked it, and that's pretty much it. Number 10, we have the latest from Pixar, directed by Pete Docter, Soul. I really, really like this. I think I enjoy like Eurovision and even Wonder Woman more than this. But I think this is a really great film. I need to see it again. I watched it on Christmas morning when I was really kind of tired and sleepy. But I just thought it was, I mean, it's fantastic. The quality of the animation is incredible. The scenes in this where it's in this kind of weird place between life and death. Just the visuals of it for one, but then the execution of those visuals was incredible, some breathtaking and just really weird like abstract stuff, which is some of the stuff I really enjoyed in Inside Out, and they play around with it in different ways here. It maybe got a little bit too gimmicky at times, and the Graham Norton character and that whole section with the ship seemed a bit too much for me, went overboard a little bit, but the overall message and the story and constantly feeling stressed out about like this character getting what he needs to get was really impressive. I don't know, like I feel like it's difficult to do a story like that where you're trying to stress the audience out a lot about like, okay, the window's closing, this character needs to get this thing, needs to get this thing, and these roadblocks keep coming up and they keep coming up, and sometimes it gets a bit grating, but this one played it so perfectly in terms of being stressed out but then still having the moments to breathe and expand the character in different ways and have these realizations about life and living, and the ultimate message was really, really great. And so I like this one a lot, and yeah, I think it kind of needed to be in the top 10 because I think that it's a better film than I enjoy it for, I think, and I would definitely assume that with repeat viewings I'll enjoy this one even more, but Soul is definitely great. Number 9, we have The Queen's Gambit. So this was written by Walter Tevis, directed by Scott Frank, and is a Netflix series. I think it's about 7 episodes long, something like that. And it's limited series. It's just one story, one and done. There's no second season coming, and it was all written by one person. It was all directed by one person, and it is a series. It's a TV series, but to me, it's also collectively a film. It's one story. It's all filmmaking. It's all cinema, baby. It's The Queen's Gambit, and it's on my list. And case closed. I really like this. I was kind of reticent about watching it, and Connie really wanted to see it, and I was like, chess. Seemed a bit boring, and then I watched it and just got hooked. And it's just a really well-told story. Anya Taylor-Joy is a great actress, and she plays a really interesting character in this, and I just loved the journey. The journey of it was so great. A friend of mine said he thought it would have been better as a 2-hour movie, and I kind of completely disagree because you get so much time with the character, and it just all gets developed so much better with the added time. And, when I think about it, I don't think about, oh, that episode was great, because it all just felt like one smooth story, and that's why it's going on the list for me, and I have no qualms or problems in saying that. I toyed with just making this like my top 20 cinema of 2020 just to kind of allow myself, but fuck it, no, I consider it as film as just as much as I do a TV series. They're one and the same for me. It's all visual storytelling, but she's great. The whole cast is pretty damn good, and the ending was a little bit sickly sweet for me. I think the ending maybe could have been serviced better with a bit more of a, not realistic ending, but just there was a certain character who kind of changed their tune towards the end. I thought, didn't like that very much, and there was also another point where she's reunited with a character after a very long time, and she walks past this crowd of people who are like trying to get an interview with her, and this guy is just like, he says something like, hello there. He doesn't say that, but something to that effect, and the crowd just disperses for this very cinematic moment where he gets revealed, and it's like, yeah, reporters wouldn't just like give way to this random guy. So there's a couple of moments where I was like, but overall, fantastic. The way that they portrayed her struggle was really, really interesting, and the visualizing of the chess pieces on the ceiling, very, very cool stuff. And yeah, and it made me think of Neil Peart, the drummer of Rush, who passed away this year, because there's an old man who, well, he's not old, but he's a middle-aged man who works in the school where the main character, Beth Harmon, goes when she becomes an orphan at the beginning of the story. And he teaches her chess in the basement, and he just looks and feels much like Neil Peart. So that sent me down a path of revisiting Rush, and that has been like one of my favorite things of this year, is just burying myself in more Rush music, and it's been really rewarding. I kind of credit The Queen's Gambit with that, really unintentionally, and I thought that it was a fantastic film. At number 8, we have The Half of It, written and directed by Alice Wu. This is another Netflix film that came out towards the beginning of the year. I think it was maybe April or May, something like that. And it's about a girl who's in high school, and she's really good at writing, and at kind of everything really. She's very well accomplished student, and people pay her money to do their exams and papers and homework for them. So this is kind of a side hustle she has kind of in the background, while she's also working at the place where her dad kind of runs the train station. So she's doing a lot of things, juggling a lot of plates. Spinning a lot of plates, and this one guy comes up to her and says, can I? And she's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, it's $10 for this many pages. And he's like, no, like test or homework. I want you to write me a letter, a love letter for this girl that I really like. And so then this is where her writing comes into play, and she's a little bit, kind of reluctant at first, but she gives into it. And the twist is that she is writing letters for this guy, for this girl, but she's actually in love with the girl. And so this really strange love triangle starts kind of forming out of this movie. And I just loved it. I loved the setting of it. I loved the acting and the performances. And again, towards the end, maybe a little bit too on the nose with some of that sickly sweet emotion. Nowhere near as much as the one I talked about with the girl from Moana, which is, what was it called? All Together Now. That one's like really heavy melodrama. This one, not so much. But there's a scene towards the end where... Actually, I kind of like the fact that there's a scene towards the end of this film where it's very much like the end of the movie, that the character stands up and says their piece about someone, and it's all very cinematic and moving and touching and perfectly kind of, they proclaim their love, but this character, like, doesn't really do a great job of it, and it's a bit awkward, but I liked that it was awkward, it felt more real, I suppose. So yeah, maybe I'll take that back. It wasn't quite as sickly sweet as I remember, because I do remember thinking, this is awkward, but I like that it's awkward, there's a really great dynamic between the three characters, the two girls and the guy, because there's something to say there about friendship and about relationships and about love and about romance and about misconstrued feelings when you're a kid, when you're a teenager. And it was just a very well written, very well acted, and very memorable film. Again, I love the setting of it, which is a really superficial thing to say, but that was kind of one of the things that I just really enjoyed about the film, was the kind of sleepy town. Felt very much like a kind of Pacific Northwest kind of town. Not sure where it was set, but yeah, I really, really loved this one. At number 7, we have Happiest Season. So this was directed by Clea Duvall, and I was really looking forward to this one. I've done a separate video about this, actually. I liked it that much. So you can check that out if you want my extended thoughts on this film. But it's Kristen Stewart, Mackenzie Davis. They play a couple. And Mackenzie Davis's character, Harper, says, hey, come home to my family for Christmas, because her girlfriend, Kristen Stewart's character, Abby, her parents are no longer around. So great, we'll spend Christmas at my parents' this year, and you can meet my parents. And then as they're driving there, she says, oh, by the way, my parents don't know I'm gay or that you're my girlfriend, so you're just going to be my roommate for this trip, okay? And so the whole kind of comedy and drama at the same time mixed in together as them pretending to be just friends and roommates when really they're together and they're in love. And she's hiding it from her family, and it's a very loaded film, very funny film. Has a lot to say about how comfortable we are with different people and how we act around different people and how we change to kind of fit certain circumstances, then throws that into a very heightened circumstance in which this woman is very uncomfortable with telling her parents that she's gay. And so it's a bit more complicated, I think, than people are making it out to be, in terms of like, well, she was a bitch for not kind of, telling her parents or not telling her girlfriend about this and the way she treated her and was shunning her and stuff. But I love how the film resolved itself at the end, because it was really about making the audience see through the eyes of Kristen Stewart's character and try to see redemption in this other woman. That's what I felt, and I thought that was a really good, smart way of telling the story, but it's also a really fun, nice family film at the same time. So this was definitely a highlight for me for 2020. At number 6, we have The Invisible Man, starring Elizabeth Moss and directed by Leigh Whannell, who is a pretty damn great filmmaker, I think. This was a film that really surprised me. I loved The Invisible Man, the original film, starring Claude Rains, my favorite Universal, monsters movie. And I enjoyed Hollow Man when I was a kid. I haven't gone back to that yet, but I really also love the John Carpenter film Memoirs of an Invisible Man with Chevy Chase. So I like the Invisible Man kind of stories, and this one just takes it from not a fun kind of, 30s monster movie, not to kind of a creepy, kind of sinister Kevin Bacon movie, and not from a fun kind of high comedy Chevy Chase movie, but in a really fucking gripping, like borderline horrific psychological thriller in which this woman at the beginning of the film kind of gets rid of her abusive partner in a very kind of cathartic way, and kind of frees herself from this hold he has over her. But there is this way that he's able to maybe make himself invisible in a way that they kind of explain in a scientific way, and he is then fucking with her from perhaps beyond the grave. And so it's one of those really frustrating and brilliantly constructed films in which you have a character, the good guy, who has these horrible things happening to them, and they're trying to tell anyone around them who'll listen, and they don't really believe them because it sounds too far-fetched. And we know that it's real. She knows that it's real. And so that frustration just builds and builds, and the tension, and her looking around the room, wondering if he's there. Did that thing just move? And we'll just focus on an empty space of a room. And you can always hear a pin drop, and you can't. Well, you couldn't, because in the fucking cinema there was a guy there with a fucking industrial-sized bag of potato chips who was just rustling throughout the entire fucking movie, and I wanted to just punch him in the face. I'm not a violent person, but holy shit, just read the room. You're going into a film that is, about this kind of, again, the building up of the suspense, and you're just like rustling, like, again, it would be like, oh. Is there a guy down that corridor, and the sound design is creaking, and it's like, oh, you're getting into it, and then he's wiping it on his leg and his shirt, and then I just so annoyed. And also I couldn't not go and pee, so I missed a certain really massive point towards the end of the film, which I'd seen in the trailer, so I need to go back and watch this film again. But it's genuinely fantastic. A fucking brilliant film. Elizabeth Moss is a great actress, and she's fantastic in this. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's just a great film. Number 5, we have Puparia. And this is a film that was made, and I suppose directed, by Shingo Tamagawa. This is a 3-minute animated short that was released on YouTube a couple of months ago, and it's incredible. This one guy did it, this Japanese guy, and it's some of the most stunning animation I've seen in my entire life. And by the nature of the animation, it's very short, 3 minutes, and there's no real story, there's no dialogue, but it's a visual poem, and there's this kind of flexibility and smoothness to some of the animation that is just, you just don't see that in films because they don't have the time to do it. I don't know how long this guy spent on it, but it's just mesmerizing. The quality of it is unbelievable. And I've watched it a few times. Every time I watch it, I get something different out of what I feel about it, what I feel it's telling me. And, at first I was like, that's the best film I've seen all year. And even Connie is just like, what the fuck are you talking? She watched it and said, yeah, looks nice. I don't know what the fuck's going on. And I don't feel like I always need that, And hey, there's many films that go down those different artistic routes, and I just don't get anything out of it. Like, what's the film Wavelength from the 1001 Movies book, where it's just a shot of a room in a kind of New York, apartment, and it just zooms in on a picture on the wall for like 45 minutes while fucking weird like white noise plays. It's just unbearable almost, and just serves no purpose to me. So if other people thought that was captivating, I kind of understand it, because that's how I feel about this film. Puparia is a stunning piece visually, and it's just, I don't know, there's something about it that I love. I can't put my finger on it, but it's one of the best films I've seen all year, and there's not too much I can do to separate that from anything else. It just has to be on the list. Number 4, from Pixar and director Dan Scanlon, we have Onward, which, this was the last film I ever saw in the cinema. And you almost wonder if there'll be anything else that I'll see in the cinema. And of course I will at some point. It will come back. It won't die. But this is the last one. And I think it was like early March I think I saw this. Maybe late February, I'm not entirely sure. And I wasn't too fussed about it. The trailers seemed okay. It's kind of set in kind of a magical world where there's kind of, goblins and elves and weird creatures. And I don't even quite remember what the main characters really are. Are they I don't know. They're weird creatures. But anyway, it's a fantasy film. And it's about these two brothers played by Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, and their father has died when they were very young. And I forget how they actually come about this, but there's this spell that takes place, and they bring their father back, but they haven't completed the spell, and it's just their father's legs, just like in a pair of like chino pants. And so they go on a journey with these pants and legs to bring their father back, to restore him to his full form for just one day. But they've already started the spell, and so time is running out. And it's this. I can kind of see why people didn't love it as much as I did, but I thought this was such a powerful, emotional story. Like, the ending just fucking ruined me. It was just so heartwarming. I really like Tom Holland, and there's a warmth to his character in this film. There's a warmth to the family, and I just loved the adventure they went on. It was really fun and visual and super enjoyable. Loved this film. Not too much more to say. Onward was definitely one of my highlights for 2020. At number 3, we have The Third Day Autumn. So, this isn't a film. It's not an episode of TV. It's not live theatre. It's somehow a mix of all three of those things and then something else entirely. So The Third Day was a TV series that aired in, I think, September, October of this year on Sky something, Sky Atlantic, Sky HBO, I don't know. It's a HBO Sky co-production, I think. Stars Jude Law and many other great actors, Paddy Considine, and yeah, so there's a really good cast, and Catherine Waterston as well, who I remember the most from Alien Covenant, which is, I'm sure, not her finest performance, but she's a very good actress, and it's a very Wicker Man-y story, and it's 7 episodes of TV. So the first 3 episodes cover summer of this story, and it's about this island just off of Essex called OC. And OC Island is the setting of this story, where Jude Law's character gets stuck on the island and has many opportunities to leave, but keeps staying because something keeps drawing him to something. And by the end of those 3 episodes of The Third Day Summer, he's still on the island. And they're very much traditional episodes of TV, like 50 minutes long, just a very normal kind of television production. And very, very well done. There were certain things I didn't love about it in terms of some of the direction choices. And then there were 3 final episodes called The Third Day Winter. I think it was Winter. Yeah, The Third Day Winter. I haven't seen those 3 episodes yet. I really should. And Naomi Harris stars in those 3. And it's set on the same island again. It all links to the same story. And bang in the middle is this kind of middle episode called The Third Day Autumn. And it was aired live, I think in October, on Sky Arts. And it's 12 hours long. It was all shot in one go. Not one take, but one go, because there's no way for a camera to keep filming and beaming that signal, to be broadcast around the world for that amount of time with no breaks. And so what they did was there was a couple of cuts where they would switch cameras, and they were on a little bit of a delay as well, so they could keep everything rolling. And there was just mistake after mistake. It was raining when they filmed it. Rain was just completely clogging up the lens of the camera throughout many hours of this production. There was a moment where a character falls into the sea, and they had to quickly reset and refilm it again. So there were these mistakes, and the camera kind of wobbles here and there. But apart from that, it was one of the most engrossing things I've ever seen. I sat there and watched it from start to finish. The only times I left kind of my bed while watching it were to go and pee and to quickly get something to eat. And I did that strategically during the moments that they had strategically placed for people to go and take breaks. There's literally a moment in this where Jude Law lies down and pretty much sleeps for 10 minutes, and the camera is just on his face. And it takes on this weird quality where you're getting just drawn into just nothing happening. And you almost go into a trance-like state, and then boom, something happens, and the character gets jolted, and you get jolted, and then now you're back into something else. There is a moment, a large sequence in which Jude Law is digging a grave in really thick mud in a field for about an hour in the rain. And you can feel his pain. You can feel how exhausted he's getting. And then they make him drag a boat around the island for an hour and a half. And he's falling over onto the ground, he's crying, and you can tell that there's not much acting going on here. They put him through so much shit in this. And then he's out in the sea, in October, probably freezing his ass off. I mean, there's just the kind of the mental prowess he had to have kind of reached just to withstand the cold of that water without shivering and kind of throwing off his performance is really incredible. People talk about, Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, and that is certainly very impressive, but, there is a cut after, a certain amount of time and you get the blankets on. He is out there in the elements in this for hours at a time and just grueling physical work. And I don't know, there's just this, I don't think many people would enjoy it. I don't know if I could ever watch it again. I kind of would like to, but the thrill was watching it live. There was just something magical about knowing that it was live, and I didn't know what to expect, and it was kind of what I expected, but it was a lot more cinematic than I could have ever imagined. The way that music is used, this ambient music, and it was just unbelievable. It really was, and it's an incredible film experience that I don't think will ever be replicated. They probably shouldn't, and I'm sure they're kicking themselves over some of those mistakes, and they really shouldn't, because what they pulled off was absolutely extraordinary, and it still resonated as a story to the point where it was just unforgettable. It's just one of those unforgettable cinematic experiences that mixed so many things. Again, it was like live theater, and it was meant to be. It was meant to be like a big celebration on the island, and members of the public would go and be a part of this living, theatrical experience. But obviously, with COVID, it didn't really work out that way, and they had to delay it. And now it's like it's in like autumn where it's like really fucking cold, and they have to kind of brave the elements. But yeah, it's a weird one, but a 12-hour film. And I just thought that it was one of the highlights of the year for me. It had to be on the list. At number 2, we have another Netflix film, a documentary entitled Dick Johnson is Dead. This was directed by Kirsten Johnson, and the film is about her dad, Dick Johnson. I was a wreck at the end of this film. It's about her realizing that when her mother was in the latter stages of her life and going through dementia, she didn't really have many videos of her, and that part of her life wasn't documented very well for understandable reasons. But she wanted to kind of change that for her father's decline. Her father was a psychiatrist and is in reaching the end of his life. He's I think maybe in his 80s, I think. But he's getting on. He's retiring, and she decides she wants to make a film about him. And she's noticing that he's forgetting things and waking up in the middle of the night and thinking that he's back in his psychiatry office and stuff and getting dressed. And, so she makes a film about the inevitable fact that her father is going to die. And what she does is she stages these deaths. So she has her father go out onto the street of New York and has, an air conditioning unit drop on his head, and then films him lying on the floor splayed out dead. And it's this really dark humor. And the way that she intersplices it, the way that she kind of blends these documentary pieces where she's just chatting with her dad on camera about, when was it that, mum started to slip on the stairs, and he's talking about it. And then we just see a shot of a hand and his hand going down the railing. And then he slips and falls down the stairs and his head's cracked open. So it catches you so off guard where you think you're watching still the documentary and you're not. So she keeps switching it and kind of surprising you and shocking you. So I just love the way that she played with that kind of dark humor, and at the same time it's really touching and really affecting in terms of, he just seems like such a sweet old man, and the father-daughter relationship really shines through, and just facing that inevitability of his mortality in such a fun and kind of, again, dark way was just unlike anything I've seen before. And I'm constantly fascinated with death. That's kind of like a subject that's always been a morbid curiosity for me. And so films based on that are probably always going to catch my interest. But the way this film ends is unlike anything I've seen. And it made me both want to kind of, give her a playful shove, like, you motherfucker, I can't believe you did that to me. At the same time, just give her a hug and say, that was incredible. What a masterstroke. It's that sense of frustration and celebration, and what an ending. The ending of the film is just, burned into my brain. What a weird and interesting and powerful thing to do. And, it's a very personal film. And as such, it resonated with me in a very personal way. So, yeah, this for a while was definitely the number one. Which brings us to the end of this video, my number one film of 2020, my favorite film of 2020. Now, given the fact that I've already talked about a 3-minute animated short that was posted on YouTube, a 12-hour live episode of TV, and a limited Netflix series in my top 20 films of 2020, it only feels fitting that I follow through with that. But I'm not going to. Just know that deep down in my heart of hearts, if I think about what is my favorite film of 2020, the story that affected me the most, the story that's going to stay with me for the rest of my life, the answer, very clearly and very simply, would be that my favorite film of 2020 is The Last of Us Part 2. Now, the argument and the debate for The Last of Us Part 2 being considered a film in any way, shape, or form is an argument and debate that I don't think you're all ready for, but your kids are going to love it. So my number one film of 2020 is actually another film that many would probably not consider a film, but it definitely is a film. This was part of the Small Axe anthology series that is on the BBC iPlayer now, I think Amazon Prime in other countries. And these are 5 separate films directed by Steve McQueen. And this is the only one I've seen so far. I wanted to watch all of them, didn't get the chance to. This is called Mangrove. I watched this a few nights ago, and I definitely fall into that trap. I'll see something new and it kind of wows me and dazzles me and it goes straight to the top of the list, but it's the best film I've seen in 2020. And the first 20 minutes I thought, oh, this is like really provoking story and stuff, but I couldn't see myself rewatching this, you know. And I think about those things sometimes when I'm watching a film and I'm thinking, how good is this and everything. And by the end I thought, I will definitely rewatch this film, and I feel like that this, you know, in a different time would be considered a classic movie. There's incredible performances, there's an incredible true story, it's a courtroom drama, it's based on a true story, the Mangrove 9, these people who staged a demonstration in London in I think it's the late 60s or early 70s, I forget, because the film takes place over a number of years, from 1968 onwards, I think. They staged a demonstration against the police because there's a man who ran this restaurant called the Mangrove, and, you know, there's a black community there. And the police were just harassing them, particularly the owner, just constantly. And so they staged a demonstration to try and do the right thing. And a little bit of violence kind of, you know, came out of that. And so they all got charged with rioting and inciting violence. And it's about the court case. And the first hour of the film, like, my blood was boiling. It was so provoking what was happening to these people. Knowing that it was a true story made it even more provoking what was happening to these people. And by the end, there was multiple moments where I was just like full of tears in my eyes because there's so much power in the story. And even then, there's maybe a couple of things where I thought, that wasn't as good as the rest. But otherwise, it was just so perfectly executed. It captured a feeling and a flavor of a time. And, you know, it makes you look at it and you think, wow, what a win for racial injustice. And then you just look at today, you know, like 50 years later, and you're like, you know. But then, you know, that's the great thing about it. You think, well, how much has changed? You know, racism is still rampant, you know. But it's like, well, what would you expect them to do? To just lay down and take it? No, they fought for their own rights. And it's such an inspiring story. And I didn't know how it played out, so it made it even more involving for me. But the acting, Sean Parks, who plays the man who ran the restaurant, what a performance. There's so much going on behind those eyes, so much anger and just fucking, you know, like it really builds up. And I love how at times the police will turn up and it just turns into a massive ruckus. And I think in my head, like, if they just like let the police come in and just be very, you know, calm and everything, then things would be all right. But then I realized that's not how it works. It's definitely not how it worked back then, where police were able to get away with so much more than, you know, than what they could potentially get away with now. Now, I say this, I just saw a video on Twitter this morning of a man in America who was arrested at a food court because he matched a description. So they didn't say anything, they just cuffed him straight away, took him out of the building. And they're saying, we're looking for a man with dreadlocks and a black truck. And then he said, I don't have a black truck. You're just arresting me in front of my kids. And he's getting really agitated and shouting and stuff. And they get a call and they go, oh yeah, maybe you're not the right guy. And they apologize and take the handcuffs off. But nevertheless, just the instant, oh, that's the guy, handcuffs straight away, Would that happen with a white man? I don't think it would. And the crazy thing is, I don't know if this is really related, but those police officers were not wearing masks, and they're supposed to be, apparently, from their police department, and the man they arrested now has COVID. And it was just strange, just the parallels, and yeah. But I think that's a story that needs to be told. I'd never heard of the Mangrove 9 before, now I do, and it's an incredibly entertaining and powerful and emotional story. But it is a film that is so strong, I think, that I could rewatch it again and just remind myself of the world that we live in, the world that we have lived in, the world that my parents grew up in, you know, in the 60s and 70s. And it's just an important film, but it's also a very entertaining film. And just the way that they portrayed the courtroom stuff, it's just a brilliant hour of storytelling. It is a 2-hour movie. It's not like an hour-long episode. Like, it's a meaty, you know, it's a proper film. And I know the other, like, episodes or films in the Small Axe series are like an hour and 10 minutes each, but this one just came away and stole the whole year for me. Right at the last moment, just clutched it. Now I'm intrigued to see over the next few months what I will watch that might take Mangrove off the top spot, and I think it's possible, but I can't see it not being knocked off the top 3 for sure, because it was just so damn good. Letitia Wright was great in the film. There's just so many great performances. Even the man who played the main kind of, you know, offending police officer. Oh, what a piece of shit. You just want to punch that face. Again, I'm not violent, but what a motherfucker. And that actor played him perfectly, to the point where I almost look at his face and I think, how can he not be a twat? No offense to the guy. Maybe he's just that great of an actor, but he has that face where he's so fit into that role of this guy who just wouldn't leave this community alone, and was just on a mission to harass them. Anyway, Mangrove is my favorite film of the year, and of course this turned into a very long video, but hey, it's me. Thank you for watching. Leave your favorites down below, what you think of my list, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a happy new year if you can, and let's see what 2021 has to hold for all of us, and yeah, cheers.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans and calling into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.